We have to talk about the budget first. This is a spend, wedge and win budget. It's economic, it's political, it's strategic. There's no attempt at budget repair and it's nowhere near a surplus for the next decade at least. This budget is spending billions upon billions in cash payments for the working class in a way that Labor will find difficult to stand in the way of. Indeed, they won't today when it goes to Parliament. And it's a cost of living budget that gives the government something to sell in marginal seats in just a couple of weeks' time. The government says it can afford it because we're heading towards full employment. The best jobless rate in 50 years. Jobs, better paying jobs, and coal and iron ore made the budget $100 billion better off. So it's a reward in many ways, not just a handout. Josh Frydenberg is trying to remind you that life is pretty good right now compared to the last couple of years. But one of his budget papers say that it might not last. Inflation is rising to 4.5%, rising interest rates from June, and wages that will barely keep up. Let's go live to Canberra now. Trudy McIntosh is standing by for us. Let's get to the spending, because this affects everyone, Trudy. It's a pre-election cash splash, an attempt to buy votes. Will it work?
Well, Laura, that's the magic question. It looks like the Prime Minister and the Treasurer have thrown everything they can at this with an $8 billion cash splash on cost of living relief just days out, we expect, from the federal election being called. Let's run through the measures. We knew there was going to be a change to the fuel excise, but it is bigger than had been anticipated. It's going to be slashed in half. That happened from midnight last night, down 22 cents. Now, this is going to last for 6 months, due to automatically go back up at the end of September. It's going across the budget bottom line, $3 billion, but on average, when you fill up your tank, you'll be around $15 better off. There's also been a change to the low and middle income tax offset. Now, this is expiring this year. The government is not going to extend it into next year, but to compensate for that, they have added a top-up bonus to this year's amount. So the total now for someone on the lower middle income tax offset will be $1,500. You'll be able to get that money at tax time. And finally, there is a one-off bonus that is going to be flowing just before the election. This is going to 6 million Australians, including people on welfare, pensioners and veterans, $250. The Treasurer won't say exactly what day this will flow, but he indicated this could happen by the end of April. The questions really flowing this morning about the timing of this ahead of the election. Here's the Prime Minister this morning on Sky News.
We had a focus group last night, live to air, and the first gentleman out at Windsor in the seat of Macquarie, he said these payments look like a bribe. What do you say to him?
Cost of living pressures are real, and Australians need that support now. Just like when we introduced JobKeeper. It was needed then, it was temporary, it was for a particular purpose. We achieved that purpose. We have a real purpose now. We've got to give Australians a shield against these cost of living pressures that could frustrate and break up the momentum that the economy is building.
As for Labor's reaction this morning, they've made it clear that if they are elected into government and in September, they will allow this fuel excise to go back to where it originally was, so 44 cents in the litre. That would be a 22-cent increase. We've also seen, though, Labor say they are not going to stand in the way of any of these cost of living measures in the Parliament. But that's not to say they didn't have some free criticism along the way.
I mean, they may as well staple cash to how to votes on polling day. I mean, how cynical is this government that's been in office for almost a decade, has been dismissing cost of living pressures, and now just days before they call an election, they have these one-off payments. Australians will see through this.
You call it a cynical ploy, but will you oppose any of it?
Well, we won't oppose payments to people who are under pressure.
Good question, Pete. So Labor's backing it in. They won't stand in the way, and it might just work. But Trudy, Labor this morning is pointing to something we both found in the budget yesterday. We've been to a few budgets. We always go to this line in the budget. There's two sections, measures taken but not yet announced. There's a cut and there's a spending side to it. Labor seized on this morning. They reckon there's $3 billion in secret cuts. Do we know what they are?
Laura, it's not exactly clear at the moment what these measures are. Normally when you look through the budget before an election, you're looking for a big war chest. These are decisions they're taken and are planning to announce during the campaign. But what we saw yesterday on the payments side is for the next few financial years, there is a reduction in payments that amount to, over the course of that period, they amount to nearly $3 billion. Labor indicating that they believe these are secret cuts, that the government has to come clean. The Shadow Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, telling me you can't rule out, therefore, that the government's planning to cut Medicare, for example. Now, it doesn't seem like that is the case, but look, with this ambiguity, it opens up the government to a vulnerability here, that there is something hidden in this budget papers. This is the Finance Minister, Simon Birmingham, last night on Paul Murray Live, asked on this exact issue.
Let's deal with the cuts bit. What the hell are they talking about?
Well, Paul, I have not the faintest idea, because there are absolutely no such things to be found either in the document, buried or otherwise.
I put this to the Treasurer's office this morning. They're indicating, Laura, that what this is a reconciliation between the war chest announced in MyEFO, so that big billions of dollars that we didn't know. There's some of those things have been announced subsequently. So what's happened in the budget last night is a reconciliation of that war chest and the decisions that are taken. Look, it's not up to me to explain the government's policy. You've got the Finance Minister, Simon Birmingham, on later. He might be able to put it a bit more simply as to what these alleged cuts actually are.
We'll speak to him in 22 minutes, Trudy, and we will ask him. Thanks so much. We'll check in soon.